Hello and welcome to Verbal to Visual. Today I would like to share with you my go-to approach for getting started with a new big project. This approach will get you on your feet and away from your desk as you work instead on a big wall. A wall that you will fill with ideas and bridge what sometimes feels like an infinite gap in between the initial seed for your project, the first sparks of ideas and inspiration, and actually completing it, following through and finishing the thing. Here's what I like about working up on a wall as opposed to down on a desk. I found it to be a great way to go through the first couple of steps at the early stages of project development, particularly when you're first gathering ideas, getting all potential ideas down, and then organizing those ideas. When you work up on a wall with the materials that I'll describe in a second, you have the ability to go back and forth between those two steps. You get to organize the ideas as you're gathering them. It's that flexible approach to the brainstorming process that then helps you do the next step of taking action on those ideas. Because ultimately, your brainstorming doesn't do anybody any good if you don't do something with those ideas. And when you give a project some dedicated wall space that you can reference over time, I think that can help you take the steps to actually produce the thing and get to the finish line, whatever that line looks like for you and your project. I'll be sharing some specific examples of what my walls have looked like with my big projects, which have mostly been online courses that teach this skill that I'm showing you here called sketchnoting, capturing ideas with some combination of words and sketches. But before I show you those examples, let me lay out my go-to materials for this process, as well as some idea capturing techniques, what you actually put on the paper that goes up on the wall. I tend to keep it pretty simple with the materials that I use. I like to use index cards and cheap copy paper because of how affordable and accessible they are. It's also helpful to have scissors on hand when the ideas you capture on that copy paper in particular doesn't fill the full page. As far as writing and drawing utensils go, I like to use just a few different markers, typically one black, one gray, and then one color, usually red or blue. That combination allows for some variation in what you see up on that wall, which can be helpful as it gets filled with more and more ideas. And with those colors, I might use black for drawing, the color for text, and gray as kind of a helper color for diagrams or arrows or those types of marks. And then to actually put up on the wall the sketches and the writing that you do on those index cards and copy paper, blue painter's tape comes in handy. That way you're not doing any damage to the wall, and it makes it easy to move ideas around, to tap into that power of organizing as you're gathering ideas. So with this set of materials, I do tend to have a desk close by to the wall, and I'll sit at the desk to first get the ideas down, and then go up to the wall and put it wherever it makes the most sense. And that back and forth of sitting and standing, moving around, I even find that helps get the blood flowing a little bit and bring some extra energy to the creative process. So with those materials in mind, let me next outline a handful of idea capturing techniques, what you might actually put down on those pieces of paper. One simple go-to is the combination of an icon and some text. That's great anytime there's an individual idea that you want to capture and remember. Coming up with some simple icon related to the idea will make it easier to find that later as you're scanning the wall. And then with a short text description, you can dig into the details of that idea. The index cards work great for that combo, and depending on the nature of the project that you're working on, you might find it helpful to sketch out simple scenes, maybe using stick figures within the setting that's connected to your project, a bit of a snapshot to help you remember the human experience connected to your project, along with a caption to help describe whatever that scene depicts. Other times it will be important to get a handful of ideas down quickly. If that's the case, you might want to throw a quick title at the top of a piece of copy paper and then jot down a quick bulleted list. If you're focused instead on the relationship between the different ideas you're capturing, maybe the different stages of the project that you're working on, or the different people involved in that project, the set of outcomes you might be hoping to achieve, when capturing those types of ideas, you might rely on diagrams like a mind map. or a flowchart. You can start that diagram on one piece of paper, but then add to it if you fill it and need more room. And as you use your wall to gain more clarity around your project as a whole, you might work toward developing an action plan to take the follow-up steps to get you to that finish line. In that way, you know the steps that are in front of you, and with the rest of the wall, you can also see the underlying work that led to those steps. You can focus in on whatever you need to be paying attention to right now, but you've also got that fuller context right there to reference whenever you need to. What I like about this approach of using an entire wall to help you develop initial ideas and then take action on a big project of yours is that it helps you to look at the problem that your project is solving from different angles, literally. You can walk back and forth along the wall, get close to it, then step really far away. And I found that those different perspectives help me to do a better job at the early stages of a project of understanding both the zoomed out view of whatever it is I'm working on and the zoomed in details. I think gaining some clarity at both of those levels up front set yourself up for success as you then carry through with that project. I also find it helpful simply being able to walk away from that wall. Leave your office for a break in the middle of the day, at the end of the evening, over the weekend, and then come back to it. And I think that each time you do that, each time that you make it back to the wall, you'll see something different there, or something new that you can add. In that way, particularly with the materials we outlined here, that allows you to improve as you build. There's the ability to quickly iterate on the ideas that you're working with. You can sketch them out in different ways until you find the one that feels like the best fit, and you can move them around until you like the way that they're all organized together. That quick iteration with these analog tools can be invaluable. So with that as a bit of an overview of how you might use a wall when working on a new project, let me next share a handful of examples, starting with the very first course that I worked on here, called An Introduction to Visual Note-Taking. This is what my wall looked like as I was developing that course. I used the clothesline technique as described by Stephen Pressfield to first organize the different units that I wanted to include within that course, and then on small sheets of paper, I filled out all of the details that I wanted to include within each of those units. In another resource that I worked on called Sketchnoting in the Classroom, for teachers who want to share the skill of visual note-taking with their students, I did something a little bit different. I broke up a large roll of poster paper into distinct sections for the distinct subject areas that I was exploring, and I made it my goal to fill each of those columns with as many ideas as I could as I explored the intersection between sketchnoting and a specific subject area. With that project, I was working with my friend Austin, and it was really nice to be able to point to ideas as we were discussing them. And with that one, when it came to grouping the ideas, I came in with a new color, in this case yellow, to help me organize how I wanted to present those ideas in the video lessons that I was working on. And here's a final example. This is the wall that I set up when I was developing Build an Online Course with Sketchnotes, in which I helped others design and produce their own education experience using sketchnoting as a primary tool. Each of these full pieces of copy paper here was the first draft of a lesson that I later recorded in video form. And though my examples all center around the creation of an educational experience, I think this approach of using a wall to focus your ideas on a new project, I think that it can apply to just about any type of project that you're working on, both for solo projects and for group projects. It's one large repository of ideas that everyone can see that allows you to see both the big picture and the details of whatever it is you're working on, and then take the steps to not only finish the project, but also make it as successful as possible because of the clarity that this type of visual representation helps you achieve. So the next time you've got a big project that you're working on, see if you can dedicate some wall space to it and give these ideas a go. For more support on the sketchnoting side of things, if you'd like to lean in on the visual representation of ideas, check out the courses available at verbaltovisual.com. You'll find the ones I just described and a few others that will help you to develop and apply your sketchnoting skills in a meaningful and impactful way. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with whatever project you're working on, and I'll see you next time. Till then.